Discipline over emotion means choosing control when every instinct demands reaction. Emotion is fast, loud, and persuasive. It arrives without invitation and pushes the mind toward comfort, anger, fear, or pride. Discipline arrives quietly. It does not argue, it does not beg, it simply waits for a decision. Most people allow emotion to decide their actions, then spend their lives dealing with the consequences. Discipline reverses this order. It decides first, and emotions are forced to follow. Emotion changes with sleep, hunger, praise, and insult. Discipline remains the same on good days and bad days. When motivation disappears, motion collapses. Discipline continues. This is why relying on how you feel is dangerous. Feelings are unstable. They rise and fall like waves. If your actions depend on them, your progress will always be inconsistent. Discipline creates a fixed path that does not move when emotions shift. Every moment presents a choice between ease and effort. Emotion prefers ease. It wants comfort, distraction, and approval. Discipline chooses effort, structure, and delay. It understands that short-term discomfort is the price of long-term strength. This choice must be made daily, sometimes hourly. There is no finish line where discipline becomes unnecessary. The moment you relax control, emotion fills the space. Anger is one of the strongest emotions that tests discipline. When anger appears, it demands expression. It wants words, actions, confrontation. Discipline teaches restraint, not suppression, but control. Restraint means observing anger without letting it steer behavior. The disciplined mind understands that reacting in anger often creates problems far larger than the original cause. Silence becomes a weapon. Patience becomes protection. Fear is another emotion that tries to dominate action. Fear exaggerates danger and minimizes ability. It convinces the mind to avoid effort, risk, and growth. Discipline interrupts this process. It does not wait for fear to disappear. It acts in spite of it. Through repeated action, fear loses authority. Discipline proves to the mind that fear is a signal, not a command. Pleasure is the most subtle enemy of discipline. Pleasure disguises itself as reward and relaxation. It whispers that you deserve rest before the work is done. Emotion follows this voice easily. Discipline recognizes that uncontrolled pleasure weakens focus and steals time. It allows rest intentionally, not impulsively. It schedules recovery instead of escaping into it. Training discipline over emotion requires structure. Fixed routines remove the need for emotional negotiation. When the time to act is predetermined, feelings become irrelevant. The body moves because it is time, not because it feels ready. Over time, this consistency rewires the mind. The brain learns that resistance is useless. Action becomes automatic. Discipline also requires honesty. Emotional minds lie to protect comfort. They create excuses, justifications, and stories that sound reasonable. Discipline demands truth. It asks whether the action aligns with long-term values or short-term relief. This self-questioning builds awareness. Awareness reduces emotional control. Small disciplined actions compound. One controlled response strengthens the next. One resisted urge builds confidence. Over time, discipline becomes identity. You no longer force yourself to act. You act because that is who you are. Emotion still exists, but it no longer leads. It becomes information instead of instruction. This mastery is not harshness. It is respect for your future self. Every disciplined choice is a message sent forward in time, saying that growth matters more than comfort, that control matters more than reaction, That strength is built through repeated obedience to principle rather than obedience to feel. Silence builds power because noise scatters attention and weakens control. A mind filled with constant sound, opinions, and reaction has no space to observe itself. Silence creates that space. It removes unnecessary movement and allows awareness to sharpen. When the mouth is quiet and the mind is still, perception deepens. You begin to notice patterns in thought, emotion, and behavior that were previously hidden by distraction. Most people fear silence because it exposes them. Without noise, excuses disappear. There is no external stimulus to blame or hide behind. Silence forces confrontation with the self. This confrontation is uncomfortable, which is why many avoid it. But discomfort is the doorway to strength. In silence, weaknesses reveal themselves clearly. Once seen, they can be addressed. Silence is not passivity, it is active restraint. Choosing not to speak when ego wants attention is a form of discipline. Every unnecessary word drains energy. Every reaction spoken aloud gives control to the external world. Silence preserves energy and keeps power internal. When you do not rush to explain, defend, or impress, you remain centered. Others become uncertain while you remain stable. In conflict, silence is often stronger than argument. Words escalate tension and harden positions. Silence interrupts this cycle. It forces others to confront their own emotions without resistance. A calm presence unsettles aggression. The one who remains quiet gains the advantage of observation. Information flows toward the silent mind. Power follows information. Silence trains patience. It slows impulsive behavior and creates distance between stimulus and response. This distance is where control lives. Without it, reaction is automatic. With it, choice becomes possible. The ability to pause before responding is a defining trait of inner strength. Silence builds this ability repeatedly, moment by moment. Internal silence is even more important than external quiet. Thoughts that constantly judge, compare, and replay past events consume mental energy. Learning to quiet this internal noise sharpens focus. When the mind is not arguing with itself, it becomes efficient. Tasks are completed with less effort and greater precision. Decisions become clearer. Doubt loses volume. Silence also strengthens presence. When attention is not divided between talking, reacting, and seeking validation, it settles into the present moment. Presence improves awareness of body, breath, and environment. This awareness enhances performance in every action. Movement becomes deliberate. Timing improves. Mistakes decrease. Many underestimate how much power is lost through unnecessary explanation. The need to be understood often comes from insecurity. Silence dissolves this need. When actions are consistent and disciplined, explanation becomes irrelevant. Results communicate more clearly than words. Silence allows results to arrive without interference. In learning and training, silence accelerates growth. Listening more than speaking allows knowledge to enter without distortion. Observation reveals details that instruction alone cannot provide. Masters speak less because they see more. Silence keeps the mind open instead of defensive. Silence builds emotional control. Speaking often intensifies emotion by feeding it. Silence allows emotion to rise and fall naturally. Anger weakens when not expressed impulsively. Fear shrinks when not reinforced by words. Calm grows in the absence of stimulation. Over time, silence becomes a shield. It protects focus, energy, and intent. Others may mistake it for weakness or distance, but it is neither. It is discipline expressed through restraint. The quiet mind is difficult to manipulate because it does not reveal itself easily. In silence, intention remains hidden, and hidden intention holds strength. Pressure forges strength because ease never demands growth. When conditions are comfortable, weaknesses remain hidden and potential stays dormant. Pressure removes these illusions. It forces the body and mind to adapt or break. This is not cruelty, it is reality. Every form of strength, physical or mental, is born under resistance. Without resistance, there is no reason to change. Pressure exposes habits. Under stress, true patterns surface. Discipline reveals itself or its absence becomes clear. When tired, distracted, or challenged, the mind defaults to its deepest training. Pressure shows what has been practiced consistently and what has been avoided. This exposure is valuable. It removes self-deception and replaces it with clarity. The body responds to pressure by becoming stronger if the stress is accepted and managed. Muscles grow when they are challenged beyond comfort. Bones strengthen under load. The same law applies to the mind. Mental pressure increases resilience when faced repeatedly with control. Avoided pressure weakens tolerance. Embraced pressure expands capacity. Many confuse pressure with danger. Pressure is not harm, it is demand. It demands focus, effort, and adaptation. The mind that resists pressure amplifies pain. The mind that accepts pressure uses it as information. Acceptance does not mean surrender. It means working with reality instead of fighting it. Pressure narrows attention. Under challenge, irrelevant concerns fall away. This narrowing can sharpen performance if guided correctly. When the mind learns to stay calm under pressure, it gains access to heightened awareness. Reaction time improves. Decision-making becomes faster and clearer. Pressure, when mastered, becomes an ally. Avoidance of pressure creates fragility. When life inevitably applies force, untrained minds collapse. Small challenges feel overwhelming. Emotion takes control. Strength is not built in moments of ease, but in repeated encounters with controlled difficulty. Each encounter builds confidence rooted in experience, not belief. Pressure also reveals values. Under stress, priorities become clear. What truly matters surfaces quickly. This clarity simplifies choices. The mind stops chasing trivial concerns and focuses on essentials. This simplification strengthens resolve and reduces internal conflict. Controlled exposure to pressure is essential. Too little produces weakness, too much produces damage. The disciplined path introduces pressure gradually and consistently. This balance builds sustainable strength. Progress is measured not by the absence of stress, but by the ability to remain effective within it. Pressure teaches humility. It reminds the mind of limits and areas for improvement. This humility prevents complacency. Complacency is the enemy of growth. Pressure keeps the mind alert and engaged. It prevents stagnation by demanding continuous refinement. Emotional pressure tests inner stability. Criticism, failure, and uncertainty apply force to identity and ego. Those who depend on external validation crumble under this weight. Those who have trained internal discipline remain steady. Pressure detaches strength from approval and anchors it in self-control. Repeated pressure builds trust in oneself. Each time pressure is faced and managed, confidence deepens. This confidence is quiet and grounded. It does not rely on optimism or bravado. It is built from evidence accumulated through experience. Pressure also sharpens boundaries. Under stress, Inefficiencies become costly. The mind learns to eliminate wasteful habits and unnecessary distractions. Focus becomes selective. Energy is conserved and directed. This efficiency strengthens endurance. Over time, pressure reshapes identity. You stop seeing difficulty as an obstacle and begin to see it as a signal for growth. Challenges no longer provoke panic but preparation. Strength becomes the natural response to pressure rather than resistance or escape control the mind, because the mind controls everything that follows. Every action begins as a thought, every habit begins as a repeated idea, and every outcome is shaped by internal dialogue. When the mind is undisciplined, life becomes reactive. External events dictate internal states. Control of the mind reverses this relationship. Internal stability begins to influence external conditions. The mind naturally seeks comfort, certainty, and stimulation. Left unmanaged, it avoids effort and exaggerates difficulty. It creates stories to justify inaction and emotional reactions. Controlling the mind does not mean suppressing thoughts. It means observing them without obedience. Thoughts appear automatically, but following them is a choice. Awareness is the first form of control. Without awareness, the mind operates on autopilot. Reactions happen before reflection. Awareness creates distance between thought and response. This distance allows choice. The moment you notice a thought, it loses some of its authority. Observation weakens compulsion, repetition strengthens whatever the mind focuses on. Fear repeated becomes anxiety. Doubt repeated becomes hesitation. Discipline repeated becomes stability. Controlling the mind requires directing attention deliberately. Attention is energy. Where it goes, growth follows. Training attention trains the mind. The mind resists control because control threatens comfort. It prefers familiar patterns, even harmful ones, over uncertainty. Discipline introduces structure to counter this resistance. Routines reduce mental negotiation. When decisions are predetermined, the mind has fewer opportunities to sabotage action. Language shapes mental control. The words repeated internally influence perception and behavior. Negative self-talk narrows possibility and drains energy. Neutral, factual observation restores clarity. Control of the mind includes control of inner speech. Replace emotional exaggeration with measured truth. Emotional triggers reveal areas lacking control. When specific situations consistently provoke strong reactions, they signal untrained mental responses. These triggers are not weaknesses to avoid, but areas to train. Exposure combined with awareness builds resilience. Over time, triggers lose intensity. Stillness strengthens control. A constantly stimulated mind becomes restless and impulsive. Periods of intentional quiet recalibrate attention. In stillness, mental patterns become visible. This visibility is necessary for change. Without stillness, the mind remains fragmented. The mind often confuses thought with reality. It predicts failure, rejection, or danger without evidence. Controlled minds test these assumptions through action rather than belief. Action provides feedback. Feedback corrects distortion. This process grounds the mind in reality instead of imagination. Control of the mind also means accepting discomfort. Growth requires sustained focus under difficulty. The mind will attempt escape through distraction or justification. Discipline recognizes these attempts and returns attention to the task. Each return strengthens control. Emotions are information, not commands. The mind amplifies them when untrained. Control allows emotions to be felt without surrendering direction. This balance preserves humanity while maintaining authority. Strength does not require numbness. Consistency is the proof of control. Temporary discipline is willpower. Lasting control is habit. Habits operate without emotional debate. Building them requires patience and repetition. The controlled mind values long-term direction over short-term relief. Over time, controlling the mind transforms identity. You no longer identify with every thought or feeling. You become the observer rather than the reaction. This shift creates inner freedom. External conditions lose power when internal control is established. Consistency creates mastery because repetition shapes ability more than intensity ever can. Occasional effort produces occasional results. Repeated effort produces transformation. The mind and body adapt to what is done regularly, not what is done passionately once in a while. Mastery is not the result of a single breakthrough, but the accumulation of small, deliberate actions performed without interruption. Talent is often misunderstood as natural advantage. In reality, what appears as talent is usually the visible result of unseen consistency. Daily practice refines skill, sharpens judgment, and builds efficiency. Each repetition removes friction. Movements become precise. Decisions become instinctive. This refinement cannot be rushed. Consistency builds reliability. When actions are predictable and structured, progress becomes inevitable. Motivation fluctuates, but consistency does not depend on mood. It operates through commitment to routine. This removes emotional negotiation from action. Work gets done regardless of internal resistance. The nervous system adapts to repetition. What once felt difficult becomes familiar. Fear decreases as exposure increases. Confidence grows from evidence, not affirmation. Each consistent action provides proof of capability. This proof accumulates quietly until mastery becomes visible. Inconsistency resets progress. Long breaks erode skill and discipline. The mind forgets patterns it does not reinforce. Consistency protects momentum. Even minimal effort maintains connection to the process. Small actions preserve identity and prevent regression. Consistency also builds trust with oneself. Each kept promise strengthens self-respect. Each broken promise weakens it. This internal trust influences performance more than external validation. A person who trusts their own discipline moves with certainty. Mastery requires boredom tolerance. Repetition is not always exciting. The mind seeks novelty, but mastery demands patience with monotony. Consistency trains this patience. It teaches the mind to remain engaged without stimulation. This ability separates professionals from amateurs. Consistency sharpens focus. Repeated engagement with the same task reveals details missed before. Subtle improvements emerge only through prolonged attention. These details compound into excellence. Inconsistent effort never stays long enough to notice them. Thorough are essential to mastery, but only consistent practice exposes them clearly. Without repetition, mistakes appear random. With consistency, patterns become visible. Patterns can be corrected. Correction accelerates growth. Consistency transforms identity. You stop seeing the practice as something you do and begin seeing it as who you are. This shift removes resistance. Action aligns with self-image. Mastery becomes natural rather than forced. The environment supports consistency when structured intentionally. Fixed times, defined spaces, and clear rules reduce friction. These structures protect consistency from distraction. Discipline is easier when decisions are limited. Consistency outlasts obstacles. Interruptions, setbacks, and slow progress lose power when consistency remains intact. Progress may slow, but it does not stop. This endurance is the foundation of mastery. Mastery is not loud. It develops quietly through disciplined repetition. Results appear gradually, then suddenly. Those who witness it often overlook the years of consistency that made it possible. Becoming unshakable begins with accepting that instability is the natural state of the untrained mind. The mind reacts to praise and collapses under criticism. It rises with success and falls with failure. This constant movement creates exhaustion. To become unshakable is not to avoid movement around you, but to remain steady within it. Stability is built internally, not borrowed from circumstances. An unshakable state is rooted in self-governance. When decisions are guided by principles rather than emotion, external events lose control. The world continues to change, but your direction does not. This requires clarity about values. Without clear values, the mind negotiates with every situation. With values, choices become simple, even when they are difficult. Unshakability grows through exposure to discomfort. Avoided discomfort strengthens fear. Faced discomfort builds tolerance. Each time difficulty is met with calm action, the nervous system learns that instability is survivable. Over time, this learning becomes confidence. Not loud confidence, but quiet certainty. Detachment is essential. Detachment does not mean indifference. It means not allowing identity to depend on outcomes. When identity is attached to success, failure shakes it. When identity is attached to approval, rejection destabilizes it. Detachment anchors identity in effort, discipline, and integrity rather than results. Breath and posture influence stability. Shallow breathing feeds anxiety. Collapsed posture signals defeat to the mind. Controlled breathing and upright posture reinforce calm and readiness. The body and mind communicate constantly. Training the body supports unshakability of the mind. An unshakable person does not rush to react. Reaction transfers control outward. Response retains control inward. This pause between stimulus and action is trained through awareness. The longer the pause, the greater the control. With practice, this pause becomes automatic. Clarity strengthens stability. Confusion creates vulnerability. When goals are vague, obstacles feel overwhelming. Clear direction narrows focus and reduces noise. Even slow progress feels stable when direction is certain. Unshakability also requires boundaries. Without boundaries, external demands drain energy. Saying no protects focus. Protecting focus preserves stability. Boundaries are not barriers. They are filters that allow what aligns and block what disrupts. Mental rehearsal reinforces unshakability. Visualizing calm responses to pressure conditions the mind. The mind cannot easily distinguish between rehearsed experience and real experience. Rehearsal prepares stability before challenge arrives. Time strengthens those who remain disciplined. Early stages feel fragile. Consistency hardens resolve. Each day of controlled action adds weight to inner stability. Eventually, disruption feels temporary rather than threatening. Unshakability is not absence of emotion. Emotion still arises. The difference is authority. Emotion informs but does not command. Authority remains with discipline. This balance preserves humanity while maintaining strength. When identity is rooted in effort, values, and discipline, External chaos loses its leverage. Stability becomes a natural state rather than a forced one. The unshakable mind does not resist the world. It stands firm within it. This entire message comes down to one truth. Strength is built from the inside outward. Discipline over emotion, silence, pressure, control of the mind, consistency and unshakability are not separate ideas, but parts of the same path. When you stop reacting and start governing yourself, life no longer dictates who you become. The noise fades, pressure becomes fuel, repetition becomes identity, and stability becomes natural. You are no longer searching for motivation or permission. You move with clarity, restraint, and intent. The world may remain uncertain, loud, and demanding, but you do not. You stand steady because your foundation is internal, trained daily, and rooted in discipline rather than circumstance.